News anchors hardly attract scrutiny beyond the occasional slips in small blocks of interviews they conduct on running stories. But they are perhaps the most influential in the broader stratification of journalists in any post-colonial state. If ideology matters, then those who frame the stories matter even more. Mensah is the one Ghana listens to each night for a summary of the day's most important news stories. Together with his production team, they determine for Ghana not just what the most important issues are, but also what perspectives ought to be explored at any given time. And by that, they have such an influential place in shaping national discourse. But is he alive to this power? How is he utilizing that, and for whom? I sat down with him to reflect on his work and to critically interrogate the ideological issues that influence and shape journalism broadly in Ghana. The Joy News editor and head of politics, Mensah, is my guest. Very well, thank you very much, Evans, for agreeing to do this. I'm going to get right into it. So, you are obviously one of the most prominent media voices in the country. You're editor at Joy News, arguably the most influential media house in Ghana. The shows that you anchor, Newsnight, and of course PM Express, really attract the best of people, state, non-state actors, and all of that. But it would appear that all of these platforms are not enough for you to be the very strong, very critical, very uncensored voice that Mensah ought to be. Was that the case?
So that the premise of the question I challenge. I think within the limits of our society and expectations, I am aware that it's in a society such as us, we're built not to be critical, not to ask questions. That is culturally, that's how we're built. Age-wise, you're not supposed to be critical and ask questions of your elderly. As a journalist, what are we constitutionally mandated to do? Chapter 12 says, gives us a constitutional mandate, primarily to hold the government accountable to the people. And for me, that's where I draw my strength from. That's all you're supposed to do. But in the cultural context where you're not expected to do that, then there's always a contest between what the Constitution says and what society expects you to do. But within the limitations of that, I think I've done this job for 18 years. Yeah. I think I'm satisfied that I meet that expectation very clearly in terms of asserting my independence, my professionalism, asking the questions, not caring whose ox is God.
You know, it's interesting that you raise the cultural element and all of that, because how then do you respond, for instance, to what My Joy Online says about the new show that you have on social media that purportedly quotes addresses or discusses political issues with the gloves off, end quote. And here I'm talking about State of Play, where you have a new show on social media. It is not on your regular mainstream platform. And the impression that one gets, therefore, is that it is unworthy to be on that platform, or that by the very nature of how you have constructed that show, it cannot be on that platform. When I look at that, the sense I get is that if it has to take you an entirely new platform to essentially be yourself on the sidelines, then it's a case of you and your colleagues being geniuses and coming up with that to circumvent the traditional problem, or you're just cowards. What is it?
Neither of the two. What it is you have to acknowledge that there are two platforms with two different ethical and professional considerations for doing the job.
Why does that arise in the first place?
So remember that there's social media, where very recently, in the last decade, we've seen the emergence of what we call citizen journalism. Okay, and then there is traditional media, where you have professional journalists. The distinction, the distinguishing factor between these two things I've indicated, it is in one breath, in one of the cases, which is the case of the social media and where State of Play sits, where we have citizen journalism. The standard the ethical standards, the expectations that you have there, the gatekeeping role that you're expected to play, the sifting of the news from mere conjecture, opinion, to what fact and truth is, are not as strict in social media, in the realm of social media, as it is when you say sit on a proper traditional media like Joy FM. So this is what I mean. Yeah. So a citizen journalist who sits on social media is allowed to publish hearsay. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, is it that you crave for something like that?
No. So I'm developing a point. He's allowed to put out hearsay. Is allowed to express opinion, uninhibited, unrestricted opinion, and the platform, the nature of the platform allows that, and it's okay. Nobody will come and chase you for it. However, if you sit on Joy FM and you're saying you're doing Newsnight, or you're doing Top Story, or Morning Show, the expectation is different. The ethical injunctions are completely different. I cannot be as opinionated when I'm doing Newsnight as I will be.
But the impression I get therefore is that you are essentially trying to create a distinction and to run away from, because I get the impression that you would love also to have your opinion.
No, I can't. No, I wouldn't love to. I wouldn't love to, because professionally, as a news anchor, you have to be neutral. Opinions are not allowed in the news. Period.
That sounds, so if you take the kind of news anchoring that you do, there's a lot of analysis that also comes in there. So
no, I'm actually not allowed.
It's not a case of
I'm actually not allowed
reading the
no.
News. When you are engaging, for instance, on say a very recent issue of the Achimota Forest, when you are engaging the minister, the perspectives that you bring to bear in that kind of conversation.
No, I don't. I'm not allowed. Journalists in doing the news, reading and answering questions, you're not allowed to bring personal perspective to it. You're allowed to ask questions. You're allowed to probe, and you're allowed to present facts. But that's all.
No, but how practical is that then? Because I do not imagine.
But that's a journalistic injunction.
Yeah, but I do not imagine that you go into all of those interviews with predetermined questions that you can never move away from. The point I make about what you think and your analysis in the course of the interview is because you pick the issues that are going on.
But that's exactly what I'm saying. You just read what you think. In strict journalistic work, what you think doesn't matter. The person who holds the what you think concept is the audience you're serving. Your job as a journalist, strictly speaking, present all the facts to the audience and allow the audience to come to their conclusion based on the facts presented. That's where your job ends. Your job ends as a journalist when you are able to gather all the facts, ask all the hard questions, and present them to your audience to come to a conclusion. However, if you take yourself out of the news realm and go to an opinion piece, there you can do what you're suggesting.
Would you say, for instance, that those who say manage or anchor or run a morning show, for instance, are any different from you in this particular context?
They are. And now we have seen the evolution of activist journalism. We've seen the evolution of opinion journalism, right? And so in the morning show space, you have a bit more room to...
But how did that come about?
Because journalism has evolved.
Yes, but why is your kind of journalism, being a news anchor, who ask questions, listen to how the conversation is going, and then come in and out of it. How, and especially given the position, that's what my background or the context that I set is that you are very influential, your platforms are very big. Why, and you seem to be interested in sharing your opinions too, that's why there's a new show. Why are you not leading the charge, therefore, for the kind of show that you do, to become what morning show is now, that people are able to express their opinion in that particular
I am instance. Just not, the thing is, I am, as a news anchor, okay, I am just not allowed professionally, ethically to do what you're suggesting. It will be unethical, it will be unprofessional to sit in the news, reading the news,
that's very difficult for me to accept.
To accept. No, but then there's not.
I get a premise.
There's no news anchor.
Yeah, I get a premise.
Who is reading the news?
But the reality is that you cannot entirely decouple them. The reality is that when you are out there on set, and even sometimes when you are preparing, there are perspectives that come to bear on what you go out there and to ask. When you're doing editorial analysis and all of that, you choose a certain frame and perspective that you want to.
I mean, I see you. I guess there's a tussle in your mind between two concepts that always has become an issue in terms of the philosophy of journalism mass comm, which is neutrality and objectivity.
Yes, well, we're going to come to that.
But that's a struggle I see in your question. In the news world and what I do as an anchor, I am obliged to be objective.
Yes.
Neutrality is a myth.
What does that even mean?
Objectivity is
fairness.
That's it. So those ones are easy to explain. You have to be objective means you take a subject.
Yeah.
Objectivity requires you, the professional injunction to be objective, requires you that there are several sides to that subject.
Yes.
Hear everybody else in the subject. Here, let everybody else have a say. Consider all the sides, right? And present all the sides. That's being objective.
Yes.
By the mere definition of neutrality, which is you simply don't have a position and a horse in the race.
I mean, you should be open-minded to whatever perspective.
Neutrality is to say you simply don't have. You are mindless, numb to all the factors or ingredients that are involved in the story. That is impossible. Okay. So in the philosophical sense in journalism, they say neutrality is something you ascribe to attain, but it's impossible to. Objectivity is easy because those ones you can measure. So my point I'm making to you is the mere fact that I'm choosing who to talk to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And the decision in making that choice means that I want view A as against view B. It means all those makes it impossible to achieve to say you are completely neutral because you must have. So there's a story. I want a particular view, so I go and look for the person to talk to. Okay. So you try to be objective, right? But my point I'm making is when you are a news anchor and the news, once you put me in the news bracket, and I'm an anchor in reading the news, I am only allowed, professionally and ethically, to present the facts. Once I start putting my opinions into the news, it stops being the news.
But beyond Evans Mensah, and I get that. I mean, not to have you comment on your colleagues per se, because it's broadly something that we see in the media, and because of the position that you hold, I believe that you are able to speak to some of these issues. Broadly, what do you think other colleagues who, based on your definition, may have a bit more laxity to express themselves on the respective platforms that they have? What do you think explains why they all don't seem to have that kind of, verve to go about their opinions and to very critically and strongly articulate them? So,
if you take the way journalism is now in this country, I think for the mainstream media outlets, I actually observe that over a period, journalists are now more than before have become very assertive in expressing their opinion. I actually think that if you're doing a comparison between now and before, more journalists are becoming opinionated, analytical, and to put it bluntly, are able to state where they stand on the matter based on a certain analysis. Okay, you can disagree with the conclusions they come to and the positions they take, but journalists are now taking positions and have become activists. So my answer to the question is, I actually believe that
journalists are doing that now.
Journalists are actually now, in fact, if you read the World Press Freedom Index, in the analysis of the report, they actually say part of the reason why we are having what appears to be an increase in the violation of journalistic rights is the emergence of opinion journalism. They make that point in there.
Is that good or bad?
And I think it's good. I think, and so to answer the previous question you were asking, if you take me out of the news box, okay, as in Newsnight, top story, take me out of the news box, and you put me, say, on the monitor, and I do that a lot. I'm head of the political desk. We do analysis on things all the time. You put me in that context. I absolutely, if you, in the lead up to the elections, we had a host of shows that all they did was to analyze stuff and pronounce on what we believe is the case. And we did it vehemently. We got attacked for it. I mean, we needed police protection. I mean, etc. But we did it fearlessly, right? And we do it once the facts are there. We'll analyze and say we believe this is what it is. And we do that. I do that a lot now. Except that, that's my point earlier was, except that once you ask the question from the background of a news presenter, then I'm constrained. I can't do that. But even there, I must tell you, I must confess something to you. I actually find a conflict even in myself, right? And remember that I've done the job for 18 years, right? 19 years now, almost. I come from a background of the people I grew up feeding off were the people like Kweku Sechiados of this world. I grew up on the likes of
You're talking about broadcast.
the broadcast. Even General Kweku was cut across, right? I was taught by people like Audrey Gajekpo, Dr. Audrey, Professor Gajekpo now, and what I was taught was strict journalism in its purest sense, that you cannot have an opinion in the matter. You just have to strictly go and gather, right? Gather and present. So, in fact, the value of journalism was to sift rumor from fact.
But what was also quite clear among that class, if you go as far back as immediately post-independence, around that period, if you look at the likes of PAV and SAR, if you're looking at all of those people from that class, I mean, Cabral, Blay, Amiye, and the rest, there was also a particular ideological position that one could see quite clearly amongst them. You could see that these were largely left-leaning, very radical, pro-revolutionary people. I struggle to get the identity of the crop of journalists that we have currently. What's your view on that? Where do you think they stand on anything?
I think, as in currently.
Yes. Your contemporary.
As in, so you actually see that. So specifics. I think really, if you look at the mainstream media, people have taken positions. I mean, on issues. I mean, I took a position. For example, remember, I'll give you an example. When we had this big issue surrounding vigilantism, and the led to the unfortunate incident of like also was gone violence. I took a clear position against it, and we did run a campaign that I led against what was a very contentious matter against having a militia, right, and opposed to vigilantism in all forms.
That's easy to do.
What is easy about it?
There's almost a consensus on that. Even the political parties don't appear to. They play
you forget.
They play with it, but
you forget that was a period when after the most contentious, and Manasseh had done his militia in the heart of the seat of government. And the whole government machinery boycotted us for weeks because of that.
Yeah, but that was also particularly because of what their view of Manasseh's work was.
Yes.
And even with that...
Yeah, because you said that was easy. That wasn't easy.
Easy in the sense that nobody says that vigilantism is something that we support. Nobody... So it is easy to take a position against that because the backlash is not... The only backlash you may get in that instance is when someone feels that you are profiling us with this problem.
Yeah, but we did that. But we did that.
Yeah, no, but that's fair. That's what I'm saying.
But we did that. We took a position
because the political parties are not against anybody.
But we took a position. But the earlier point you made, we took a position that the incumbent government had a bigger responsibility in fixing the problem, and that we almost said we should hold them accountable for they themselves having been exposed to Manasseh's work. For fueling something that they should be in control of. And the part of the responsibility we put square at the doors of the president. That I'm saying was dangerous, and it in fact led to the also West by election commission, before which I was invited to present my thought, and I was absolutely clear as an activist journalist then, condemning the political parties.
Yeah, except that, Evans, in that case, it was quite clear when the government petitioned the NMC to look at that matter. The verdict of the NMC, which is supposed to be, unless of course you disagree with that, supposed to be an independent body, looked at it and produced a verdict that said that that particular kind of journalistic work that Mensah, a very credible person by all standards, had done, fell short of the standard.
But we disagree with that.
So
we disagree with that.
So it was a particular judgment on the nature of that work that had been done. It was not in substance against your position on the phenomenon of
but that was of course they were not asked to pronounce judgment on our position. But I'm saying that independent of what Mensah did and what people thought about it, we took a position that the evidence is found. There's enough for us to take a position that we should campaign against stuff like that.
That's a fair point. I mean, in that case, there was an active decision.
Of course.
Based on the evidence.
And the powers of the day didn't like that.
Yes. But let's talk about you a bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, your own ideological position, philosophical position on this work, in this work that you do.
Yeah.
What do you think you stand in anything? I mean, broadly, we're talking about identity politics. We know people who are conservative. We know people who are progressives and all of that. How do we know, for instance, what Evans Mensah is about?
I mean, I was thinking about this coincidentally. I think I'm liberal.
You believe so?
That's all. I think I'm a realist and I'm very liberal. That's all I describe myself as, because I really struggle to put myself in any ideological box, because in fact my guiding, my compass has always been, if it works, then it's good. So I don't care if it is leftist, right or center. I don't care. Does it work? If it works, I am for it. That for me is my philosophy. I don't know how you call that. That's why I say I'm a realist.
Well, maybe you are coming more to a centrist, moderate view, maybe. But then again,
but that's me fundamentally.
Isn't that problematic, really? Because if you appreciate the kind of work that you are doing, you are in the front line, and among many other things, shaping views, shaping consciousness. People listening to you every single day, and you have absolutely no idea how you influence those people. You must be clear where you stand on anything. Otherwise, essentially creating further confusion.
Because I believe if that was my approach, invariably through my work, that approach, that position will filter through, right? And invariably then I will be silently passing on that ideological underpinnings in my work. It will come through my work, and silently, subtly influencing my audiences towards that.
You are influencing the audiences towards a certain line also, because you are influencing them towards this
liberalist approach of doing things.
Or perhaps this very confused pendulum swinging position, because you're not so sure where exactly you are.
So at every point in time, I'm very sure, except that I am not dogmatic. I guess that's my point. I don't pitch my camp anywhere.
Okay.
At every point in time, I know where I stand on an issue.
Isn't it also one of convenience, really? At every point in time, what is convenient for you at that moment is where the position that you take.
I must admit though, that the only thing that sways me are the facts. I'm so attached to the facts to a fault that sometimes can be a disadvantage, because sometimes I start with a position. I'm confronted with the facts and I switch because the facts say this, right? That has been. So I'll give you an example. I haven't said this before, but I've probably said it on radio. I have actually never voted before.
Oh, really?
Ever since I turned 18, never voted before.
Once.
I have never voted before. Why? And it's not because I have an ideology that don't vote because I'm a journalist. It has nothing to do with that. Honestly, because I haven't, in terms of, you people have this, it's a civic responsibility.
Yeah.
And you have to go in queue and get the,
You don't feel that purpose.
Look, I think fundamentally is that the whole idea of going to queue, here's the thing, I haven't voted because I have never managed the discipline to stand in the queue to get a voter's ID card. That really is the thing.
Well, that's a very difficult thing to take if that's what this is really about.
No, I'm just making that point to tell you that I am not.
You don't want to stress.
I don't hold. There are no positions, point of views, or ideologies, or any of such categorizations. Yeah. Or things that people hold dear to, they say will die for. I don't hold. I am not. I say this. I move the wing. I am not an activist for anything. Downright to the point where I'm simply doing my job.
Yeah, but Evans, I struggle with that position also.
But that's my position.
Isn't that too convenient?
It's not convenient. When you say it's just my nature.
I'm not an activist for anything. It reeks of.
Must I be? No, must I be an activist for anything?
You must be.
No, I'm a journalist.
Yeah, you must be, particularly because of the work that you do as a journalist.
When
you say I'm not an activist for anything.
I am passionate about the work, not about what I cover.
But the work is not a vain enterprise that you are in. The work, particularly, and of course you make reference to chapter 4.
For some people, journalism is a calling.
Yes.
Journalism is a calling. For others, journalism is a profession. Mine is a profession. It's a profession because it is a profession. When the issue comes, you cover it professionally. If the issue dies, you move on to something else.
So for the many who listen and essentially put their lives and their interests in the hands of Evans Mensah.
But that would be very unfortunate. I will not encourage anybody to do that. Because really, when I'm done and I say thank you very much for listening,
you're done.
I don't care. It is a job. I'm done. I'm closed. I'm home. I don't even think about what I did. The only time I think about somebody calls me and says, "Oh, wait, give me feedback." I listen to the feedback. Thank you very much. Nowadays, I've even stopped arguing. In fact, now I've adopted this saying that if you tell me today that an elephant can fly, oh, thank you very much. It's okay for you.
So here's one other bit that I want to bring on this point, and then we can move on to some other issues. So if you live in a country like ours, where privilege of the elite political class is so obscene, where the very average person, very recently you have been reporting on school feeding issues, you have reported on many things. One of the finest things that you consider yourself to have ever done was to report on something that got a community water, among other things.
Yes.
Like that. So when I look at all of that, and I look at, for instance, now.
But that's what the job I was doing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
It wasn't activism. I just found a story interesting. I went to do it. And then for some inexplicable reason, but not by design, somebody heard the story and thought, okay, let me help the people. I didn't go out there seeking. I want to change their lives.
I'm using that to paint a picture of the inequality and the problems that we have in this country.
So you think it's my job to solve the problem? As a journalist?
Not exactly, but it is your job to appreciate those problems.
Yes, and tell the story.
In the sense that it is not just a story for another day. It is violence that is happening to a class of people, and that for anybody who is in the position to be doing that kind of job, you must be interested in those kinds of things. Other than that, because if you treat it like the way you're saying, it's a story, and you remove yourself from in that way.
That's what journalists. You cannot demand. Journalists are supposed to.
But you cannot demand the accountability in the way that you must.
No, you can't. Here's the thing: journalists are professionally enjoined to detach. You know why I can sit before whoever it is I'm interviewing and ask him all the questions, and I don't care how he feels. Because in that moment, once they say go, I detach.
But
if it's 1 hour, I'm detached. You can be my friend.
Yes.
I can give you an example, and he would deny this. Kudio Ponkroma, I work with.
Yeah.
He's my colleague. He's my colleague.
Yeah.
We are still friends. But the thing that I like about him is when he's been on my show, he knows I will prepare.
Yeah.
And you should watch all my interviews that I've done with him. They're hard, but he's a friend. The minute they say go, I detach. I ask all my questions. When I'm done, it's done.
So for
I move on. So my point to you is, yes, the society is filled with ills, sufferings, politicians allegedly exploiting us. And your argument is that I should care. I should want to change that. I should feel passionate about it. My point to you is that I don't have to feel passionate about trying to change it. I just have to feel passionate about being professional.
Yeah, but this analogy, for instance. So in a country like ours, very many poor people, we have people that we always talk about, Article 71 holders. They are benefiting from so many things, including our taxes and all of that, literally our taxes. We have a Speaker of Parliament, for instance, who anytime that he gets ill, he's literally become a medical tourist in Dubai. To be able to talk about that vis-a-vis the inequality and the shambolic status that the National Health Insurance, for instance, is in and all of that, you need to be able to satisfy yourself that there's a problem there. If you are not able to satisfy yourself that that inequality is a problem, and that as a journalist, when you go on set to interrogate those matters, you're interrogating from a place where you know that the masses don't get this. Why is that other person getting that? That is the sort of moral determination that you must be able to make before you can demand for.
So that is different. I agree with you there. Yes. I agree with you. So what you're saying is different from saying.
So maybe you didn't understand the point.
No. Okay, now I understand it. Now I understand. So to answer the question, I agree.
Yeah.
That. So what? In fact, in essence, what you are saying, and I'm coming back to professional journalism, goes to what we say, what we describe in journalism as news values, right? The news values are a set of variables that journalists consider in deciding what to cover. Those are the news values.
Yes.
And there are few of them. If any 101 journalism school will tell you proximity, eminence. I mean, of course. I mean, but I know them.
Yeah.
Conflict, stuff like controversy.
Yeah.
Okay. The personalities involved. If the person is a high-profile individual, it is news. It has news value, right? So, for example, you're saying, so these are factors that you consider, right, in deciding what to cover. So every day, when we sit in the editorial meeting making decisions on what we put on the radio, as an editor, I make the evaluation, what story to cover, and after the stories have been put before me, I use the same news value to determine which of these do I prioritize as first, second, and third. All this, you make all the determination within the concept and within the framework of the news values. And there are like 15 of them, right? I mentioned a few of them, right? So in other words, I say proximity. What is proximity? A story that is proximate to you will be more important. So let me give an example. If a dog is killed in the US and somebody molests the dog, right? I don't know if you love football. So recently, Zuma.
The cat situation.
Did you think in Ghana like this is ridiculous? What's a big deal?
I just think that they are just the double standard.
So that is no, it's not double standard. It is what we call news is a cultural narrative. It comes to the proximity question. In the UK, it's proximate to them that when the proximity of the fact that the dog has been killed in that culture is a big deal. It's not a big deal. But in Ghana, it's not. Because cultural value, it's not a big deal. So in other words, if a player beats a cat here, it's not news. So those are the news values, right? They're set in the culture. Proximity. The fact that, again, in Accra, right? If something happens close to your house, it is a big deal for you, right? So you get a flood in your compound or in your neighborhood. It's a big deal. If you have a neighborhood radio station, they will cover it, right? But a national radio station, so this happened in your neighborhood in Bukuru, your small community.
We did on campus.
Proximity. You do it. But Joy FM will not. Thank you very much. But so that is a news value of proximity. Because it's close to you, it's big deal. So on the campus, it's big news. But at Joy FM, it's so far away from us that our audiences is national won't care. So I'm just telling news value. So back to your answer, those are the things I need to look at professionally in deciding whether the corruption you mentioned or the lack of water is it news enough. Okay, That is all I need to consider making my decision.
Do
I don't need to come and say, oh, this is such a big problem.
Do you think it would be a good idea for robots to replace human beings as journalists then?
Yeah, but it's happening. In fact, recently I was reading an article. Very fast, I should share with you. I've actually read it about how artificial intelligence is not being deployed in newsrooms.
Yeah, but that's what I'm asking. Do you think it's a good thing to do? Because you know the ethics.
I haven't thought about it, right? But
exactly.
But I read it and I thought,
because
wow,
the human,
that's interesting.
The human element,
is key.
Especially when you seem to be approximating towards.
It's key.
It's
key. Yeah, it's key.
Because if you really consider the ethical considerations in there, you see why you cannot continue to maintain this position that you have.
No, I believe in the position I'm expressing to the. You see, but again, you have to understand my background. I wanted to be a journalist as way back as JSS 1.
If Sophie Livingston hears you right now, do you think she'll be proud of some of the things that you are saying?
Who is this?
Your professor at LSE.
Oh, yeah. She will be. I mean, she will be because, I mean, I did audience she taught me. She taught me
fondly of that class.
Yeah, I mean, she taught me audience. And the thing about it that, in fact, Ghana Connect.
Yeah.
Ghana Connect was a concept that developed because of audience. Why did I do so? I thought at the point that a time will come, and there's a theory I developed at LSE. I haven't developed it, but some people have said I should probably write a book about it called reverse agenda setting, or another thing that, or something else. I'll explain very briefly. This is in a minute. Or in other words, what I call to make it even more complex. You know, they have all this complex for a very simple concept, like the paradigm of equilibration. Right? And I wrote extensively about it at LSE. And what was I saying then? My fundamental abstract then was that a time will come, before we thought a main role of the media is agenda setting. Yeah. And I was making the point that, so we assumed that media was an agenda. And I'm making the point, the time will come when the ordinary citizens, the non-journalists, will be setting agenda. Yeah. And then we'll have an equilibrium. Yeah. So before now, we had a disequilibrium. Yeah. Where the journalists and those within the traditional media were setting agenda and the audiences were just simply following what we do. A time will come when we will have an equilibrium where the guys who will be setting agenda. In fact, now, if you look at, the scale has tilted, where now the audiences are setting the agenda for us.
I think at this point I should make an appeal that maybe we should co-write a paper on that.
We should.
I've been thinking about if you look at Twitter Spaces, if you look at Clubhouse, the kinds of conversations that are going on there now, and how anybody at all can generate a conversation that ordinarily you should be listening to on Joy FM. I mean, there's pretty much Ghana Connect on Twitter every night.
Absolutely. So I came out from school and I thought, maybe I should start a show that anticipates that this was going to come. Have ordinary guys come and talk about the things, and let's see where it goes. And so I don't know. But back to your point about whether but I'm sure she'll be proud because I haven't really changed in terms of my ideological dispensation and I guess inclination towards it. Once the facts are objective facts, coming back to your moral determination, I'm looking at the news values strictly. Once I satisfy myself that the choice I'm making as to which story to cover, to pay attention to, are within the scope of the professionally predetermined news values, I am okay. Once I am done, I'm upon. I mean, the story, what happens to the story, and the story evolved beyond that. It's fantastic. But I'm not going to be the person who is going to try and bang the door and say, listen to what I've done and change.
I'm not a Manasseh, essentially.
Exactly. You see, that's the difference between me and I admire Manasseh. I admire my other colleague, Samson Lada Yenini. I think they are brilliant activist journalists. And they do that very well. And sometimes when I listen to something, I say, I can't do it.
Let's talk about media freedom and responsibility and what exactly that is. There's a view out there that press freedom is under attack. There's good reason for one to make that point. If you look at the Global Press Freedom Index as reported by Reporters Sans Frontières, in 2017, Ghana was 26th in the ranking. 2018 was 23rd. 2019, 27th. 2020, 2021, we've been 30th in that position. And now, all the way back, 30 places back. Is it a view that you also share, that media freedom in Ghana is under attack?
Okay, so
That's quite a long pause.
Yes, because my approach to answering questions is to start with my position and then explain. Okay. And so I pause because either I say yes, it's an attack, or no, it's not, right? And
that's easy to say.
No, it isn't, because I've explained my position on this on Newsfire recently. I wouldn't say categorically that it is under attack. I would say that media freedom is eroding. I don't know whether that makes sense. There's a huge difference. An attack is, in essence, that, there is this orchestrated, deliberate, organized assault, right, with intention. Okay, so I'm talking about intention. Yeah. So there's a motive. Somebody sat somewhere and said, we are going to go and hammer it. When I say it's eroding, is to say I'm not sure that what is happening is by design. That somebody has sat somewhere and said, I am going to do this, and so I'm going out there to hammer them.
What might be accounting for the erosion?
Okay, so it's eroding. ING.
Just not by itself.
It's eroding ING because it hasn't. It's not.
Yeah, it's continuous.
Okay, what is accounting for it? And I think one of the most important factors in all this is what I believe, and in fact, I'm happy the World Press Freedom Index touched on this, which is self-censorship. Journalists are self-censoring more now than before because of the fear that Big Brother may come for them. Okay, and it's interesting. Social media has amplified that fear. Okay, so it is not only our fear of Big Brother as in a political power descending on you somehow, but the fear that the political power will influence what I now call social media lynching of a journalist.
It's the same thing you are saying.
It's the same thing, yes. But it's just that the forms in which it's expressed is different. So it is either there is a threat of harm, okay, and we've seen Ahmed Swale, and again, I must be careful here though. The Ahmed Swale thing is, I have never cited that as a journalistic thing, and I don't think we should, because it is under investigation. And yes, he was a journalist when he died, when he was killed, but nobody can convince me yet that it has been established that he was killed because of his work. Okay, so that's why I'm saying. But there is, I understand why people who are journalists who do press work might harbor fears because it hasn't been determined yet. Okay, but something like that will get you worried. Oh, can something happen to me? That's one. Second, the fact that now we have a president who we did the work on free SHS, and we were giving feedback on it. We were critically examining where we are years after implementation and looking at where the shortfalls are and what can be done to it. And the president construes that, conceptualizes that as an attack against it, and doesn't only hold the view but expresses it publicly. And then, so you hear that. And then that then would and then the president is the president because people will die for the president, right? So they hear him say that, and it sort of then legitimizes, empowers those who blindly follow him and his assigns and appointees who say, yeah, if the president has said it, then it's fair to also go after them because the president believes it's an attack. It's an attack against the policy. So if they are doing that against the policy, the president believes that, then it's fair to go again. So you hear all that. That then feeds into a scenario where the journalist is writing a story about free SHS the next time.
What is going to be the outcome?
And you write your headline, and you want to, what would the president think about this? Okay, should I change this? Should I change this line there? Or should I write it in a milder way? Or don't care about it, just care.
That's what you believe really goes on now.
That is self-censorship. And that is what I think is happening more now.
Yeah, but essentially, you're saying precisely the same thing. Perhaps, I guess you are now saying it in the context of Evans Mensah, the anchor, who doesn't want to articulate views in a certain way. Because what you are saying essentially means the same thing that I asked, whether or not you could have a yes or no to this. Because when you say that the president's view on something that you have done before could lead you to now reconsider or self-censor, then essentially you're making the point that, and again, when you say that you don't think it is coordinated, it is by design, again, I feel like you have a penchant for undermining the intelligence of the people who want to hurt journalism, because you are assuming that the only way that they will do it will be a direct attack. Why don't you have room for the possibility of an indirect?
But I've said that.
But
I've said that it could be indirect.
Yeah, but if you agree it's indirect,
it could be indirect.
The conclusion of that could be that indeed press freedom is under attack, so that you don't necessarily.
Remember that you just used a very important phrase or word you introduced, that could be.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is that I don't want to be categorical.
You're not sure.
No, I just don't want to be categorical.
Why not?
As a journalist.
You're not doing so.
As a journalist.
You're not sure.
As a journalist.
Yes.
And again, I don't know. I think it's I'm so a journalist to a fault. I am very. I guess also when I went to school, I was taught that I feel uncomfortable, and I think it just comes naturally to be categorical about anything until I have seen the full facts. Okay. In this case, you're asking me, is president under attack?
Yes.
So you're asking me to say either I know for certain that it is,
no, but based on the
or I know it's not. But my point is that
I'm just surprised that you want to.
No, so my point. No, it's not semantic. It's not semantic. So would you say that, first of all, how you define under attack? Would you say that when the president said, the example I said, when the president said, construed our work as an attack against free SHS, would you say that is attacking press freedom?
Ultimately, what that leads you to do, and based on the other analysis that you make of people who may listen to the president and do a certain activity, or that these days, especially social media, magnifying it, when you are doing your work, you are worried that that is an attack. Anything that alters what ordinarily you would have done without thinking twice, that is violence in and of itself. Take for instance, what the historian Ben Weiss says about the Slovenian philosopher and cultural critic Slavoj Žižek's work on violence. He says, quote, "The lack of a clearly identifiable perpetrator in cases of objective violence pushes them to the background, while outbreaks of subjectively violent criminal activity, terrorist attacks for instance, easily draw popular attention." And then adds that because poverty, which is a subjective violence that we don't know who exactly is inflicting it, is a constant systematic form of violence, sudden violence, in this case, say rebellion, fighting against the state because you are poor, will more easily attract some notice. End quote. That's the way that I believe you are viewing this problem. You don't see the violence that is happening because it is not as direct and as, say, offensive.
Give me examples of the violence.
The violence, as in this case, using violence, euphemistically, to represent the attack on press freedom.
Where the attack is what? In real evidential sense is what?
The attack is in what the backlash that you get that would then ultimately get you to alter what you would do. So when you, as the editor, you're framing headlines, for instance. If you look at, for instance, the commission's work on IJRA and what they did with your colleague, Erastus Asaridonko, I mean, that is an attack because tomorrow absolutely, it gets to you to reconsider and to self-censor in a way that you would not have done. That is an attack.
So you see what we've done is to now be factual. So you're giving me an example. So you take that example.
Then change your position on that matter. Then.
No, I'm coming. Let me make that point. You take that example.
Yeah.
That specific is definitely an attack when a politician sits on radio and says, "My colleague should be beaten." That's an attack.
Yeah.
Right? That's an attack. But the fact is, it's also a case, one case. Okay. So in fact, we were on radio and I was all ballistic on the matter, right? That is condemnable, it's an attack. But you ask a broader question. Is there an attack on press freedom broadly?
Yeah, but is the aggregate of the Erastus, the aggregate of the president speaking on free SHS, the aggregate of people being in their studios, Benya FM, and all of those things that come together to induce a self-censorship, and to induce the many other problems that journalists complain about. When you put that in totality, you come to the conclusion that press freedom is under attack.
Press freedom, I mean, so press freedom, if you put all that to totality,
Yeah.
I would say, and I'll go back to what my point I'm making. I would say we put all that together.
Yeah.
We have a situation where we are eroding press freedom.
Yeah.
We are eroding press freedom.
So do you view it in the same way that the NMC chairperson does, to say that it is journalists to blame and people else, say politicians or whoever? So are you viewing this in the sense of a collective ownership of the problem. Of erosion of journalism?
I think doing that will be giving the politicians a pass. I think so.
It is largely on their side.
Yeah, you know why I say that? The political leadership, I mean, but also the politicians generally. You'll be giving them a pass. Because society takes a cue from their leaders. And this is a highly polarized, politically polarized environment like ours, even more so. So if you say we are all responsible for the attack, there's a sense in which that's true. But I hesitate to say that, because that will be given to the politicians, because they are chief corporates of this. Do you know the number of people who follow Kennedy Japan, for example, who will die on his word, right? Who are willing to starve themselves because he said so, something, right? So somebody says something like that over time. He's following thousands of people, because thousands of people voted for him. So assuming as you can assume that they like him, they ascribe to his point of view, what he stands for, right? And he says that thousands of people, and he said this over time, he's known to be anti-journalist and doesn't like what we do. Those thousands of people are those who will feel emboldened to go to a Brinya FM, for example, and beat the guy because, Kennedy Japan claim one. You know what I mean? Without Kennedy Japan doing anything about it. Over time, they've heard the man they adore, they idolize, say that over time, right? They will go and be the people there because of that. So that's what I'm saying, that I would prioritize the blame, right? Rather than say we are all collectively responsible. I'll say
something like a 60-40.
I'll say the political class have a bigger blame to take, a huge chunk, almost 70%.
Do journalists have any part at all to play?
Absolutely, responsibility. We have to be responsible in our work, and so as for that, there's no right way. It's stating the obvious in the Constitution. But I would say the mainly political leadership largely to blame, because they have a bigger role to play in fixing the problem, right? Because in societies where there are consequences for people's actions, wrong tend to be minimal. So if journalists are being beaten, and the political class who control with Constitution give them power by the police, don't crack the whip and get the police, whatever for. The IGP, I know, must do their work independently, but we know that, the way the thing is structured, ultimately the president is in, and they don't do anything about it. Not even condemn it most of the time, and it's feeble. It empowers the next guy to do it too. So that is why I would give them more responsibility.
We're getting to the end of this. I just want us to very quickly talk about framing. I mean, it fits into something that you have mentioned already, and as the Equality Media discuss second level agenda setting theory, and I mean popularized by the sociologist Evan Goffman, where he says that framing or views framing as the culturally determined definitions of reality that allow people to make sense of objects and events. And I guess you now understand why I have a problem with our views on objectivity and all of those things. The way that the media in Ghana frames things like poverty, demand for accountability, sometimes when in the instance of what we have just seen now at Kransa, and even before that Idra, when people demand answers and sometimes vent their spleen in the way that they do, oftentimes we frame the discourse as riotous young people. All of those kinds of things have implications for the kind of accountability that we demand. What's your view on how the media broadly frames issues or frame issues in Ghana?
I mean, so that's a very complex question, because all that we do is frame. Choice of words.
Language is very important.
Sources we talk to. Priority you give the story. who you don't talk to,
Yeah.
what you don't say in the story,
Yeah.
all that
Amounts to framing.
amounts to framing, and how your audience will perceive
Yeah.
once you close the story.
Yeah.
Your audience would have will come out of the story with a certain impression.
Yes.
Whatever impression they come out with, sometimes either deliberately or indirectly, you infuse that piece of story with all that,
Yeah,
right?
that's what all that you say about removing yourself is very difficult for me to believe.
No, but I'm saying that in spite
I see
of
you
that,
make an effort,
yeah,
but
I mean, in spite of all that I do, I still
Yeah.
those I cannot something that neutrality I can objectives are you aspire to, but you know it's difficult to attain. But here to back to your question, so to the point, I think locally, for most professional journalists and traditional media, I think from observation, they try to report what they see, right? But in reporting what we see, I think it's mostly inadvertent.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm not saying that there are deliberate, reports out there that is clearly, trying to get you to, take a certain position. People do that. But I think largely, it happens. We always framing anyway, but we mostly frame it either in one way or the other. That happens subconsciously and indirectly. So I'll give an example. You use a very good example about we use the word they were rioting.
Yeah.
Right?
Irate, rampaging.
So we do that. That is passing judgment without us actually knowing it. What we're actually saying is that the youth are doing something condemnable, and so they deserve possibly to be arrested. That kind of thing. Whereas if you look at it, okay, they were protesting. Carries a different frame.
Yes.
Gives you a different idea. Because they were protesting means they were possibly justifiably, they were exercising their constitutional right. Because protest is endorsed by the Constitution.
Yes.
Whereas rioting is illegal.
And I mean, it could also cast them in a certain mode.
Yeah, I get
you
it.
are in the newsroom and you are making
I get it. I mean,
yes.
So, yeah,
So I'm just interested in, and that's why, again, I've been asking you about where your position is, your positionality, and all of that. Because then if you see or say, relate with the people.
But this one actually reinforces my point.
No, it doesn't actually.
Let me explain why. You can disagree. But it reinforces my point about strictly presenting the facts, right? So the danger in framing is that you are suggesting to your audience what to make of the story you're telling.
No, but it's also where you stand in that. So, for instance, you have seen that the police have...
But the danger in that is what you pointed out. If you describe what is a protest as a riot, that will empower, for example, a police officer who is not as professional.
That is because, unlike you, I don't believe in such things as objectivity.
Okay, so you say call it what you perceive it to be.
Not exactly, because it's still a matter of fact. If you call them people who are protesting, it's still a matter of fact. What I'm saying is that your positionality would ultimately influence whether or not you use the word rampaging youth, rioters, whatever, or use the term, protest, because it comes from a certain place of consciousness, where you have seen killed. In the case of, say, the drop, the restaurant has given you the video. I've seen soldiers aiming at people. But because you care about the fact that soldiers can simply not do that, the way you frame the story will be influenced by that position. But if you don't care, that as for you, it's about the fact. Some people have clashed. Obviously, they have clashed also. So then you will likely go for clash and not see a problem with that.
Yeah, I'll go for clash.
Yes, but then if you come from what I'm saying, that I really don't believe there's anything objective about any of this.
So let's be specific, and so it helps. So in a Jura case, I use clashed, and then in describing the actions of the youth, I also use riot. I know the Fix the Country guys were not happy with the use of the word.
I was not happy to be honest.
Okay, so here's the thing. Riot is a word that has its proper meaning. Okay, a protest can become riotous. The distinguishing feature is when the protest become destructive and violent, right? So you can start as a protest, which is constitutionally supported. And then once you start destroying stuff, the police can arrest you. All the USS, yeah. So at that point, it's a riot. Okay. The question you need to ask yourself, and I'm coming back to, for me, the facts. Yeah. When I saw on television, started as a protest. Once they started blocking roads, burning tires, it becomes a riot.
But again, there you have taken a position.
Yes, but no,
it's from a certain
but is it factual? Well, no, just a second. Just a second. Remember that me, I said at the beginning that for me is a fact.
Yes.
Is it factual from the video that we watched that the protesters started burning tires, started blocking roads?
Yes.
Is it factual?
It is.
Is that a riot or not?
It is, but you see.
So you call it that. You call it that. But what you're inviting me to do is to say because there's a sense of injustice.
Yes, but
somebody had been killed, regardless of what they do. I should still call it protest.
Yeah, but you know also that riot is not the only word in the dictionary that you could use to describe that.
Which other word is there?
Why that is factual and correct? There could be so many other variations that you could.
So also, which other word?
So the point I'm making here is that at that point, you had made a determination based on your own conception of
based on what the facts. The video I'm watching.
What your view of violence is, and so you view.
But that's a universal truth. That if somebody blocks road and burning tires, what is that?
Yeah, you'd be wrong to say that because if they block roads
and is that illegal? Does a law allow anybody, regardless of how incensed or disgruntled or unhappy or aggrieved you are, to block the roads and yes?
No, but does the law also, for instance, allow for, say, the security forces to do what they did?
No. So you call both what it is.
Yeah, but that's precisely the point.
So in that report, we say, in fact, I remember doing PMSS and pausing Erastus's video and say, you see the police, the military kneel down in a shooting position and targeting.
So at the point when you were going on there, for instance, to discuss that matter, was it the plan that you had, or sometimes it could just be after the fact, but was it the plan that you had that you have seen elements of vandalism and you have seen elements of, say, abuse? You're going out there
to say both.
Yeah, that's how you went into that.
To say both.
Let me give you another example and see what you're.
To say both, but I see why people are not happy with the other one because they feel like people have been
it's a more cultural one.
Yeah.
So sometime in February 2021, when the LGBT rights office was open and the police invaded the place to shut it down and all of that, one of your colleagues, and I don't want to put you in a position that will make it difficult to answer. If you
no, go on.
Yeah. When he was reporting, said, for instance, that, or had cause to say, that in one of the offices, he saw a mattress and crumpled bedspread on that.
Okay, they're suggesting that the two men had done something
amorous
or
sexual. A certain place of a certain narrow understanding or appreciation of what homosexuality is about. You can't think about it beyond having sex.
No, but I disagree with you.
Yeah, in that case, for instance, I'm just using that to make the same point about framing. It comes from a certain.
But there's no framing. There's
framing.
Well, the framing there, but it's a factual presentation of what he saw.
Yes, but you see,
you're saying that he shouldn't tell you what he saw?
No, not at all. But I'm saying that it plays into where people are coming from, because when you say you saw crumpled best.
But did he see that?
Yeah, obviously.
So but I'm saying, are you suggesting that he done something wrong?
Yeah, I think so.
By describing what he saw?
Yes, because he also sought to push a certain narrative.
No.
Yes, that's quite evident in that.
So I'm asking the question, are you saying that he shouldn't have described what he saw?
No, I'm saying that he was obviously putting across a certain narrative by saying that, because you are inspecting the place. I'm sure you probably also saw a dustbin there, but he didn't talk about the dustbin.
Okay, so I see what your point. Your point is the choice of what fact to present.
Yes.
That is
from a certain place.
That is the point I made about objectivity and neutrality.
What you're trying to avoid.
That's what I'm saying about objectivity and neutrality. Based on, and I said neutrality is impossible to attain. Objectivity is something that you acknowledge, that you strive to, but we don't always get there because of predisposed, I guess, cultural, societal. We all come from a place, worldview, the way we were raised, etc. So the guy goes and maybe he is a journalist, but he's a Christian.
Yeah.
Okay, attempting to be professional as he can. However, he goes there and he's trying to be objective, but in the subconscious, the way he's been predisposed to believe that he comes from a society. News is a cultural value. Remember what I said at the beginning. So in this culture, he's been raised all his life, 30-something-year-old man, to believe homosexuality is wrong.
Yeah.
And you expect this journalist to somehow, the first day he goes into a scene where people have been arrested and on a substance, to all of a sudden detach completely and report it and report all the things.
I mean, they use the same journalism. I mean, like you use.
Yeah. So he will present the facts.
Yes.
What you mentioned is a case of in his head he has to prioritize. If he was going to describe everything he saw there, he probably won't finish. He had 2 minutes to do that.
Yeah.
He will have to now decide, in the order of importance of what I saw, what do I include in my 2-minute report and what do I leave out? Right? That is where the question about objectivity comes in. Because the mere fact that, I agree with, I'm saying that, say it again.
Myth, all of that, all of those.
But I remember I began, that's what I said, objectivity and actually they are myths. Because the mere fact that you have 2 minutes, and you have a 5 minute, if you want to discuss, it took you 5 minutes, you have to decide what to claim, so he will exclude stuff. But I'm saying that you have to aspire to it, which is that use your news values, and if there are 10 of them, try to satisfy close to the 10. And then you say you've done your job. If somebody can accuse you of being whatever, but that's when you say, was that factual? And your point is about what he left out. He didn't say that too.
Yeah,
but you see,
there was a tree in the house. He didn't report that there are trees.
But you can't fault him for not being professional. Right? You can't fault him for not being professional.
And I mean, for me, essentially, the point I'm making is that.
But you can fault him when
frame things in a way that sometimes suit what their own idiosyncrasies are.
Yeah, everywhere else journalists do that.
Good. And that's what I'm saying, that if that would be done inadvertently, then it must be the case that people like you, and for me, I really, really appreciate the kind of influence and position that you have. And I want a situation where the likes of Evans Mensah, because you cannot entirely run away from this, would then be alive to it, so that when you are articulating or doing your job, you do it in favor of, say, was it Desmond Tutu who said that people are, there's a conflict. One is that and you say you want to be neutral, you're obviously on the side of the oppressor. So that you are never on the side of the oppressor.
So to that point, so far as a journalist is concerned, if you have to take a side in journalism, you're always on the side of the voiceless. As for that,
that's picking a side.
Yes, always. So our job is to get the microphone, and I say I'm a purist when it comes to journalism, is to give a voice to the voiceless. So your starting position as a journalist must always be, I am on the side of the voiceless until proving otherwise. So you're always assuming that in my newsroom, you ask my colleagues, when I'm structuring a news and I'm trying to shape an idea, I say I want to hear from the people affected first.
So sometimes does it depend on the kind of people who are affected?
No.
Because I wonder, for instance, when you send people to go out and cover, say, an LGBTI situation, say, in Ghana.
Yeah, I want to hear from...
Do you tell your...
I want to hear, if I can...
Hear from,
I tell you, I've done the job for 19 years now. I have interviewed, I remember that back in the day, during the Common More time, it was on the morning show, issues of gay emerged again. I went, looked for, it was big news then, it was condemning them, it was even more vociferous than now. I thought, we haven't heard a gay person. I sat down, went to look for a gay person, sat down in an interview. In fact, even playing that was difficult because people say, why are you even giving them a voice? Right? My position has always been, regardless of who the person is, if it's an armed robber, right? And there's a suspect that and the person wants to talk, I want to hear him. I want to hear him. I mean, for me, that's journalism.
Just two quick questions and then we're done here. One on media ownership and funding in Ghana. I mean, this is quite anecdotal, but I get a sense that media owners in Ghana are generally business people who want to make money. They are politicians, some of them veteran journalists as well. They haven't exactly proven to really stand for anything, really. So, and these are the people who employ, who do all manner of things, and essentially are thinking for the nation. Are you impressed by media ownership and funding situation in Ghana, and how might that adversely affect quality journalism in the country?
I think that's possibly the biggest problem we have now, even beyond the perceived attack by political players and institutional players. I think the biggest threat we have is ownership and resourcing of media. I think ownership has been largely very disappointing. Terrible. Vast majority of people who own media have an agenda. And that's why if you see the report there, they calculated, I've forgotten exactly what the number is, but a significant amount of what the media ownership is politically owned. And if it's not political, somebody has opened it because of a business fronting for something, or want to use it as leverage to get some influence, etc. Which for me is the biggest threat we have. And it also feeds into, and that also leads to the thinking by the owners that they can maltreat their employees and not pay them well, not respect them, they don't value them as much. And that also then feeds into how society sees that. And that encourages abuse against journalists, because your owner doesn't value you. He's paying you some terrible amount of money. When you go out there, you are forced then to sort of rely on handouts. Of course, the person who doesn't respect you. I think for me, that's the biggest threat. So that's a clear disappointment.
Okay. Just a quick other one. What are your thoughts on Face the Country?
I think it started off fantastic. I like the organic nature in which it evolved, because it started from social media. There was no face when I thought that was their power, right? And I thought, wow, this is fantastic. We are onto something here. In fact, part of my research at London's Global Economics was inspired by the Arab Spring. I studied it a lot, and I thought maybe we're getting something that could really smooth, something big that could bring change in the society. I mean, not in that violent nature, but something that could force politicians to sit up and say that people now. So I was happy. I thought it was a good thing. Do I think so now? I think I have doubts.
What has changed?
Now about physics. First of all, the movement is not as strong anymore. It's not as it's not. I did a Ghana Connect on this, and let me go back there, because you on Ghana Connect. I mean, and I like to always draw from what my audience tell me. If you I listened to that conversation based on social media. We did a poll and everything. Exactly, and I got the sense that the groundswell of people who started it are disappointed. In fact, there was a guy who was a founding, he said he's disappointed in the way the thing has become. They started a big fight among themselves, they became political, and they did. For me, that's a disappointment, that they have allowed themselves to move on a political position that then people, because our fundamental issue as a society is that anything partisan, we don't trust. We hate. It is a fundamental, is at the heart of all our problems.
But isn't that precisely the nature of movements like that when they erupt? And that's why we must take them into their whole. Because when we say, for instance, that they are now becoming something else, they have allowed themselves to do this or that they are fighting. Who exactly are we talking about here?
The individuals. I mean, those who.
That's what I guess is part of its qualities and perhaps its defects. And so when we are talking about it, we must also quite be careful to not frame it as now becoming a problem because they are fighting. Because if you don't have a leadership, you have structures, and that appears to be what you like about it, then clearly you're going to see those things also.
No, but what I liked about it was the fact that it was people. It was people-led, organically generated, and that was what I thought that was where the power was. And then it moved from the people to individuals. That's my problem, right?
That is because someone or people on their own believe that we need to find a way of sustaining this. Because you know also that in this country we have had several things in different forms like that come and go. Maybe because of our own local context. It's difficult to sustain it. For the media, we're to blame somehow, because at some point when the news value, as you talked about, doesn't appear to be as forceful and strong anymore, we move on to something else. Someone must sustain it.
Yeah, someone must. I disagree that someone must.
Or a group of people must sustain it.
I think the people must sustain it. Without the
abstract term.
why is it abstract? Because where did physical economy come from?
Because it's about,
It's
about the sustenance.
No, yeah, but of course, but it came from somewhere.
Yeah.
Where did it come from? The Arab Spring.
Mohammed Bouazizi.
Yeah, and what sustained it? The people. They were on the street for days, months. Change government. The people. Why? That's my point.
But you see, but Evans, if you
that's
if
my
you,
point.
look at
that's my point.
The very many people who have conducted research, for instance,
Yeah.
studied Arab Spring across the region and all of that. What is also quite clear, and it's the same thing with color revolution in
Yeah.
Europe and all of that. There are always hands behind that. The fact that we may not see
So
these
when-
faces does not mean that.
So what
there are
I guess
people
my point I'm making
who
is, even when leaders emerge from that,
Yeah.
it should never stop being about the people.
And you don't think that now?
I think the problem they have now, and the reason, and again, don't take my word for it, the people themselves who led it and split, gave us reasons why they split.
Talking about the economic factors.
League and they went all out. Everybody was issuing statements.
Them. They have not
Yeah.
proven the allegation.
No, not that. Both of them had reasons why they separated.
Yeah.
The reasons why they separated, that they told us, the country says that they sort of had to a kind of thing, and then the one was I'm not part of it, but those reasons, I guess, make my point for me. That if it was about the people, then there was no reason why there should be that split, right? Because I had things like on that show, like they go for an outdoor event, like a protest, and people are bringing their pictures, and they want to wear a certain, they want to be seen, and then it stopped becoming about the people. If it's about the people, that individualistic approach won't happen. People won't complain. We all go. There will be faces who go and present, but when they come back, it's the people's movement. Okay, that is for me the problem that they have.
Final question to you, Evans. In the last quarter of 2021, this should be somewhere around September, I believe, the Herald newspaper made some damning allegations against some members of the CSO fraternity, as well as leading politicians on the minority side, including minority leader Haruna Idrisu. And it was about a purported bribe, allegedly, involving Aker Energy and GNPC. Specifically in relation to you, the Herald reported and alleged that you arranged a meeting with Mr. Dankanamwa of COPEC. You denied that. Is that correct? You never did that.
I mean, personally, that it was so frivolous. I never spoke about it. I never personally denied it. They themselves, if you, I'm sure you've done the research. They themselves issued statements.
Yeah.
I saw Dankanamwa saying it's not true, and I saw I think Asepa also saying it's not true. That's the reason why I didn't touch it. I didn't make anything of it because there was nothing in there.
Obviously, their personal interests were also.
No, I mean the people. Remember that the allegation was that the people have been bribed.
That you arranged, for instance, specifically.
The people who the allegation is that have been bribed came to say that didn't happen. Obviously. Because it didn't happen. I mean, obviously because it didn't happen, and that's why for me it's a complete non-issue because it was concocted. There's nothing there.
But you admitted, for instance, that you provide some consultancy work, being the very experienced journalist that you are for.
Oh yes, and remember that the part of the thing that was said was not even part. What happened is, remember, professionalism, conflict of interest. There is a way of dealing with conflict of interest. Yes. Okay.
That's actually the point of this question.
That's exactly. That's why I'm just making your case.
On that evening, that story obviously looked like the biggest story in the country.
But
it was not on top story.
And I wasn't on leave then. I wasn't there. You know why?
But the station didn't still deal with it.
No, but that's
suspecting that perhaps it's because you were involved.
So you use the word suspecting, right? It's okay to suspect, but it is better to verify.
But that was not why.
Say that again.
That was not why.
No, but I was coming to the conflict. Yeah. So it's not a secret that I consult for Aker Energy off and on in my capacity as a communications person, and of course I have a communications background to this. When you're a journalist and you do that, the first thing you do is to declare, internally, which was my former boss, may he so rest in peace. I mean, I spoke to him about it. Immediately I said, when a story comes about Aka, I'm not touching it. That time when the controversy erupted, I deliberately decided that I am going to go on leave. I just don't even want to be around the neighborhood of my multimedia, so that somebody will suspect.
And then they also did not touch on the story.
I honestly don't know whether they did or not, because I didn't listen. Honestly, I didn't. I was far away. In fact, the truth is, I never said I was far away in Dubai. Okay. I mean, I didn't know, because I didn't want to. I didn't want to. I didn't want to be anywhere near the thing, because for me, professionalism is key, and I will not compromise on that. And so I was happy that I was away, and I deliberately took my time. I deliberately targeted and took my time off and left. Even if I was here, I told my colleagues that when the story comes, I'm not going to touch it. However, if you need information to help do the story, I could put you in touch with those who can give you the information, but I don't want to touch it. Okay. So that, and I think that for me, that is how it should be dealt with.
Very well. Evans, thank you so much for agreeing to this. Really appreciate it, and I think I've enjoyed the conversation. Grateful.